So, welcome, and let us start today with walking the Bodhisattva way. So, as always, we'll go through the Bodhisattva vows first, vows, and then we'll go through the Lojong teaching, the root verses on training the mind, and after that, we will go to verse 4, where we are currently, which we have to reflect upon. So let us go through the Bodhisattva vows first. If anyone of you, Krish and Sham, anyone would like to go through the verses slowly for all of us, please unmute, and if you have the capacity to unmute and read out, please unmute and read out the Bodhisattva vows. Okay, so no problem. So I'll read it out. Doesn't matter. Okay. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles, and for the boundless multitudes of living beings. May I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. So, jumping to the root verses that we have been reflecting upon. So, since both of you cannot speak it out, I'll do that today myself. So, Lord Atisha's root verses, Lojong root verses. Lojong basically means training, for the training of mind. Training the mind. Lojong root verses on training the mind. The supreme understanding is to realize the meaning of selflessness. The supreme spiritual discipline is to tame one's own mind. The supreme great quality is altruism. The supreme oral instruction is to observe the mind at all times. The supreme remedy is to know that nothing has self-nature. So this is the one that we are going to discuss today. The supreme remedy is to know that nothing has self-nature. The supreme conduct is to be in disharmony with the world. The supreme accomplishment is a continuous decrease of disturbing emotions. The supreme sign of accomplishment is a continuous decrease of wishes and wants. The supreme generosity is non-attachment. The supreme ethical conduct is to pacify one's mind. The supreme patience is to take the lowest place. The supreme effort is letting go of activity. The supreme concentration is not altering the mind. The supreme wisdom is to not grasp onto anything as the self. The supreme spiritual teacher is the one who exposes our hidden flaws, and the supreme instruction is the one that helps us to strike at those flaws. The supreme companions are mindfulness and alertness. The supreme inspiration is enemies, hindrances, disease and suffering. The supreme method is to be natural. The supreme way of benefiting is to help others enter the dharma. The supreme benefit is a mind that turns towards the dharma. So, with this, let us continue with the verse 4. We'll listen to the teaching by Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo. And then we will also be taking up the readings from Thich Nhat Hanh today on the same theme, that nothing has self nature, because Thich Nhat Hanh really very clearly talks about this. So let us listen to this teaching first, and then we'll
supreme remedy
go to the next.
present with the mind. The word translates nature. The supreme remedy is to know that nothing has self-nature. So the word translated as self-nature here is the word svabhava. And so according to Buddhist philosophy, our problem is that we reify everything. That is, we make everything into things. Something solid, enduring, and real from its own side. So this includes our sense of self, that we make ourselves something solid, enduring, unchanging, and me versus everything else out there which is not me. But we also do it with, of course, other people, and we do it with things. So without going into this in very great detail, I mean, in Tibetan Buddhism, you know, monks spend 20 years debating this sort of stuff. We've got 20 seconds. So, but the idea is that we, okay, I'll use my glasses. The idea is that we take something and we label it, and then it becomes a thing in itself. For example, these glasses here. If I ask you what is that, you will say they're glasses or they're spectacles. But if one says, well, where is the spectacles? Where is the glasses? Is it here? And you say, no, that's the lens. Well, what about this? No, that's the frame. Well, in the frame, which bit is it? No, that's the handle, and this is this. I mean, if we keep pulling it down, looking for the thing in itself, we cannot find it. Everything comes together because of various causes and conditions. It's not anything self-existent from its own side. We can keep reducing it down. I mean, if we were getting into physics, we would reduce it down to its cells and the atoms and the neutrons and the protons and so forth, and you know, keep going down until you come back to space and energy. But we never can find the thing which we can point out to say that is the spectacles. Spectacles is something which we posit on the basis of all these different factors coming together. But the thing in itself, we cannot find it if we look. Where is the essence of these glasses? We cannot find it. It just keeps reducing down and down. When I first went to my my grammar school, which is not what you call a grammar school, my secondary school when I was 11, we, for the first time, started science. So I said to the physics teacher, funny, I thought, now I will know. So I said to the physics teacher, when we keep reducing everything down, what is the ultimate that we get to? And And she said, oh, protons and neutrons. And I thought, no, 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 no. If you've got a proton or a neutron, you must be able to reduce that. If she had just said, space and energy, I would have gone, oh, great, and maybe become a physicist. But because she said protons and neutrons, I lost interest in physics. Because actually, if one keeps reducing down and down and down and down, what is the ultimate? And then everything comes about due to causes and conditions. Everything. You take everything, the floor, the wood, who planted the seeds, the ground, the earth, the water from the sky, the sunshine, the insects, the everything, all coming working together to produce a tree, which eventually, again, will be cut down. Cut down by who? Who was the people cutting it down? Who was their family? What was their relationships? Everything is interconnected.
So I'm going to take a pause here and maybe we open for a few reflections. I remember once I was attending a retreat somewhere in the mountains a long while ago. And then I was just sitting quietly and I was looking at a mountain. And then suddenly, this exactly what was being reflected upon, I started to reflect upon that where is the mountain? Where can I say that this is the limit of the mountain? So logically, not logically, on the surface we can say, okay, this shape is the mountain. But if we go deeper, what Jetsunma was sharing, that if we go deeper, we see that, okay, this is a rock. Okay, this is soil. Okay, these are trees. There are birds. There are the air around it. So where exactly is the mountain? And if you go really close to anything, take anything. So for example, this we call pen. Now we say, okay, this is plastic, this part is plastic, this is the so-called, the ink inside. Where exactly is the pen? So what she was sharing, it's not that it's not there, something is there, but the idea is that it is because of the interconnections that we can call so-called, appearing thing a pen, because it is made of some plastic, some this, some that. So if we try to look for pen, we can't find it. We can only find the things that made the pen. And that is why it's worth reflecting upon that when I call myself as this body, where is me particularly? Okay, I can have some, some material which is made of maybe flesh, earth, fire, these 5 elements. Okay, nothing personal about it. And then we go deeper, atoms, protons, neutrons, nothing again personal about it. So where exactly is the person that I am talking about, that this is me? And I can't exist without the air which is supporting the skin, my breath. So the idea is to know that none of us and no thing exists separately, disconnected from all the other elements. And it is not to say that we don't exist or the things don't exist. It is just to say that the things don't exist by themselves. They are always dependent on conditions and causes. And this is what is a reflection upon that nothing has self nature, which means that nothing is separately, can exist separately, disconnected from everything else. It is impossible. That cannot happen. So that is what we have to reflect upon on our own self also. That where is this me that I talk about? This intelligence everyone has, the knowing everyone has, eyes, ears, all these are elements. Everyone's body is made of these elements. So what is so rigid about this I, that I keep on saying that I want this or I want that? And I think it's worth reflecting upon to see, to check the solidity of this separate self. So if there is anything, please, we can take more reflections at this point. Unmute and share if there is anything coming. Okay, so I'll then, in that case, continue with.
Yeah, I was just going to say something
Yes,
quickly.
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's similar to a concept in Advaita, Vedanta, when they talk about mithya, where they said nothing is real if it has a dependent existence. So, yeah, like obviously we've superimposed names and forms onto reality, but that everything is impermanent. And even they use the example of like a table, a wooden table. There aren't two things there. There is just wood, but we've created this label called with table. But you can't separate the table from the wood. There's only wood. It's just, and we've got different. We've got different configurations of wood, like chairs and doors and tables. We've called them separate things, but they are in essence just wood. But then, as you said, if we break it down
Yeah,
even further, then
yes,
that wood has a dependent on existence on the fibers, and the fibers then it can go into atoms, and so you keep on going further. What is the essence of
yeah,
what we're seeing? Obviously, in Vedanta, they say that everything is just a configuration, are just names and forms of consciousness. Everything is consciousness in appearing in multiplicity of forms. So yeah,
yeah,
no, I agree with that.
yeah. And also with wood, the thing that you were sharing, wood. So if we go to a tree, and we see that okay, tree is dependent on the air,
Mhm,
right? So the table cannot exist without that air because the wood is
absolutely.
dependent on that air, the soil, the earth, the nutrition, and the water. So all this, Thich Nhat Hanh, he uses this term which I resonate with very much. He says a tree is made of non-tree elements.
Mhm,
So soil, water, air, all these are non-tree elements. Like a paper is made of non-paper elements, which is cloud, rain.
absolutely, yeah.
So it's really amazing how vast then we become when we reflect like this, like zooming in, and see that we are all dependent on uh, each other and the elements around us, and we don't have a separate solid existence. So a kind of a fluidity comes in.
Mhm,
I'm not then too rigid that I have to protect my own self, because if I reflect on the nature of self, I realize that it's all interconnected, and hence it is not possible that I do this. Who am I protecting?
yeah.
And I think this also has global implications, because if I really understand this, not merely as a concept but in factuality, then I would see that if I destroy the planet, I'm actually destroying my own self.
Mhm,
Since without the air, soil, wherever I make the pollution, it is coming back to me, so called me. So I think it has the power to also create a greater sensitivity, that we cannot exist in isolation, that I can put garbage outside and be very content inside. That is not going to happen. That garbage will come to me in taking loops and rounds, somewhere sooner or later.
yeah, no, it's a good way of seeing it.
Yeah. So let's hear a bit more, and then we'll read something from Thich Nhat Hanh later. Just a second, maybe something is wrong with the screen share. Okay, this is this. Yeah, got it.
But our minds don't see that interconnection. We only see the thing, and then we solidify it and we make it something which exists from its own side. It's nobody's, we're not saying that it doesn't exist at all. What we're saying is that we don't see how it really exists. And we make everything real and solid. And we don't recognize that everything arises due to causes and conditions and has no self-existent nature. Self-existent means that there's something in it which you can point out as the thing in itself. But when we analyze down and down and down and down to find the thing in itself, we never can find it because it can always be broken up into more things. So that's basically what it means, is that we project this whole reality which seems so real, so existent from its own side, not recognizing how much we ourselves input into what the senses receive. This is one of the interesting validations which is now coming from neuroscience, that what our senses actually receive is something quite vague. But the brain, being a supercomputer, immediately solidifies it and labels it. And then immediately decides whether it likes it or it doesn't like it. It happens so quickly that we think we're actually getting the validation from something out there, not realizing how much our mind is contributing. This is why His Holiness the Dalai Lama is so fascinated by science, and neuroscientists and quantum physics and so forth, because what they are discovering is validating the wisdom which has existed in India for thousands of years. And the scientists are amazed how these yogis could have known that without equipment. And of course, His Holiness is amazed at how these scientists could have known that without meditation.
That was really funny. So I think I really find this always mysterious, very, very mysterious, that whenever we look at anything which is so solid, as if because of the senses I can feel the solidity of it, and I will say yes, it is there. And even if logically speaking, scientifically speaking, if I go deep into this matter, so-called matter, at the level of even the as deep as science can go, at the level of wave and particle, now that we know electron and neutrons and protons, and even deeper, we see that there is no solidity here. The thing about this Schrodinger's cat's phenomena also, that if there is a box, very crudely speaking, there is a box, and it would only depend on when I look, then the cat appears. But when I'm not looking, the cat is there, not there, we cannot say that, right? So I feel that I personally take it very important in the sense of when I'm looking at my ego, when thought patterns, ego patterns, feelings are surfacing and I'm becoming more conscious of them. So the more I believe in them, the more solid they become for me. All the stories and conceptions in my head. And the more I am ready to let them go, let them come, go, let them come, go, and not hold on tightly to them like with rigidity, I have the power to transcend my patterns and the stories in the head. So the wave particle thing is also happening in the mind, I feel. Again, this is just my feeling that uh, the thoughts going on in my head continuously, like a repeated, these stories that go on about persons, about life situations, about my own self. The more belief I have in those stories, I make them solid and real. Otherwise, they have no importance at all. They just can be let go of. And that's where I feel that this is the challenge, when many a times we fall into despair and depression. We are rigidly holding to some story that we have created in the head. And if we can for once lose that stubbornness and now say that I've suffered enough and I'm ready to let go, immediately I'm free. I'm okay. So I was creating my depression, and immediately I can be free of my depression. Just if I stop to tightly hold onto my stories, knowing that I have suffered enough. So it's amazing the power that lies in us, as if we are the cage and we are the key. Once I'm holding on to something very tightly, my images about people are that are related with me, holding very tightly. Yes, this person is like that, and that situation is like that. And the moment I let them go, I don't stick to those thoughts. They don't have any grip over me, power over me. I can recreate my own world. So yeah, let's hear if there are more reflections or insight, Krish or Sham. Hi, Didi, connected now? Okay. Okay, so if there are no reflections at this moment, I'll read something on this, what we were discussing, by Thich Nhat Hanh, on why nothing has self nature, like nothing can exist by itself separately. So it says, I'm reading from a book called The Heart of Understanding, if I'm not wrong. A wave on the ocean has a beginning and an end, a birth and a death. But Avalokiteshvara tells us that a wave is empty. So this is what we were discussing, that the wave does not have self nature. It does not exist like a rigid separate self. How? The wave is full of water, but it is empty of a separate self. A wave is a form which has been made possible thanks to the existence of wind and water. If a wave only sees its form, like how it appears, with its beginning and end, it will be afraid of birth and death. So, parallelly, we can apply this to us also, that if I know myself as this form, there is no chance that I will not be afraid of birth and death. Definitely, I'll be afraid. So, if a wave sees only its form with its beginning and end, it will be afraid of birth and death. But if the wave sees that it is water, identifies itself with the water, then it will be emancipated from birth and death. So this is what, in other words, Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's words, we talk about disidentifying from the surface consciousness, thoughts, feelings, sense perceptions, stepping back from them, not knowing them as myself, and identifying with the presence of awareness. So it's the same. The wave is not identifying with the form like this. It is knowing itself as the water. And now there is no fear of death, because water is everywhere. Water is there. It cannot die. So, but if the wave sees that it is water, identifies itself with the water, then it will be emancipated from birth and death. Each wave is born and is going to die, but water is free from birth and death. So this is what our task is as a human being, to disidentify, disengage from the surface thoughts, feelings, stories in the head about people, about myself, disengage from that, and to know myself as this presence of knowing or awareness, which looks at the thoughts, which looks at the feelings, and which is conscious, that in me which is conscious. And this requires a lot of time, persistence, and this is what we call sadhana. This is what is to be done in short form. So just reading something else on why nothing has self nature, or from Thich Nhat Hanh. So he talks about roses and garbage. Again, reading from the same book, and he says that when I look at a rose, I see that it's very neatly cut, placed in a vase, very beautiful. But if a sadhu or a yogi looks at a rose, when he is looking at a rose, for him, rose is not separate from garbage. How? Because he sees that in a few days, rose will wilt and it will turn to compost or dust. So, rose and garbage are one. So, how can you say that this is where the rose is ending and this is where the garbage is starting? Usually, we distinguish like this. This is where the rose ends and this is where the garbage starts. But he says that when a true yogi, true sadhu would look at the rose, he would see the presence of garbage there. And when he would look at the garbage, he would look, maybe looking at the rose there. How? Because without the compost, without the nurture and the soil, a rose cannot be. And that is why rose and garbage are interconnected. Nothing is solidly, separately existing in itself. And then he says, dirty or pure are concepts that we form in our mind. A beautiful rose that we have cut and placed in our vase is immaculate, clean, beautiful. But garbage, a garbage can smells horrible and it is filled with rotten things. But that's only when you look at surface. If you look deeply, in 5 to 6 days, the rose will become part of garbage. And if you are a good organic gardener and you have the eyes of a bodhisattva, looking at a rose, you can see the garbage, and looking at the garbage, you can see the rose. So when I look at you, for example, those of us who are present today, now looking at these eyes which these teachers are giving us, we are not separate from each other. So how can I wish ill for you? Because if I wish ill for you, who am I wishing ill for? For my own self, since I don't exist separately. So there he also gives another beautiful example, which maybe we can take later on if there is time. So, but let's take some reflections if there are any at this moment. So Kriti, we were reflecting upon, just to share with you since you've joined us today first time. So these are the verses of for training the mind, and we have been listening to teachings and reflecting upon these verses. And today we have been reflecting upon this one. The supreme remedy is to know that nothing has self nature. So we heard a teaching before while you were not here, and then we were just talking about it and sharing reflections. And I was reading something from Thich Nhat Hanh also on this, that why nothing has a self nature. Like we don't exist separate from each other. And in simple terms, it can be said that if I throw garbage out, even scientifically, I know that it is going to come back to me. So there is an interconnection at a deeper level, and hence I do not exist in isolation, that I can be protected and rest everything can go to, whatever, wherever. hell. So if I want to take care of myself, I will have to be in interconnection, take care of things around me. In simple, terms, we can talk about that. Yes, Sham.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, good evening, all. Then the next thing, what I agree with you that we need to be in sync with everything. Okay, like in nature, in environment. For many a times, what we do is that when we what you call when we harness the energies around. Okay, like harnessing the what you call harnessing oil, coal, and everything. And when we exploit those natural resources, then we do create a problem for ourselves. That is one thing. Okay, what Gandhiji had said, that there is enough for everyone's need but not for everyone's greed. So if you look from a heuristic and an objective viewpoint, we all have, our life is very simple. Okay, we only need 2 square meals a day. Okay, we need clothes to cover our body, and we need a what you call a roof above our head. Other than that, we don't need anything, to be very true. Okay, but we do make our life complex through our own ambitions, maybe through our stories that are fed onto us right from the very childhood till we grow up. Another thing, what you were talking about, that nothing has self nature, this I agree with, because life is so fleeting and uncertain. In today's world, life is means that you never know that what's held in store for you the very next moment. Like for example, at 9:42, I'm talking with you and other people. Maybe at 9:45, I may die. Okay, and maybe I'm exaggerating, but it's the way it is. Okay, like when we were born, we never knew that what life has held in store for us the next moment. Maybe it's the same way, like for example, when we are reading an Agatha Christie mystery, we never know what's held in store in the next page, or maybe in pages after that. So we tend to speculate and we form our own images. Many a times we form our images only on imaginary tiltings and windmills, something which has no real basis for that. So it happened with me also. Like when I was a child, I was told that if you don't go to IIT, if you don't take admission in St. Stephen's, then your life is not worth it. Okay. So it happened like when I passed 10th, I went to 11th and 12th. I passed that also. I couldn't get admission in IIT. Okay. So I dropped a year. I prepared for it, but I couldn't get. So I took admission in a private engineering college in Manipal. Okay, for 4 years I stayed over there. Okay, but deep down that void was there, that I couldn't qualify for the IIT if I couldn't get a place in that intellectual mansion. So after a year in the industry, when I again went back for my PG at IIT Delhi, I didn't like for 3 years that excitement, that euphoria was there. But after that, it settled deep down inside me, and then it was like any other college, made of bench, desk, chairs, and what you call brick mortar and all this roof and everything. So when we actually get it, we know that it is like same, like it is like any other thing. Okay, and we maybe the images that are created onto us by society, by media, by our neighbors, like our parents would keep telling us that look, Kapoor sahab ka beta ye kar raha hai, and Sinha sahab ka beta ye kar raha hai, but in reality it is not worth it. Okay, for this self images what we form, ma'am, we later on come to know that we were actually chasing a mirage, or we were chasing a chimera. Okay, and by the time we come to know, it's really too late. Until unless we don't dissect it at that very moment, if we come to know at a later date, at a later time, at a later period, by the time we come to know that we were acting in an idealistic manner, but for what use? Maybe it was not idealism, it was the ego which was fed into us, that if you go to a particular institution, if you have a particular title, or if you have a particular position in the society, then you are safe and secure. And maybe it is not, because we never know what life has held in store for us the next moment.
Yeah, yeah. Like in Sham, somehow I don't feel that it's ever too late.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo clearly says, and all, even coming from Buddhism, it's shared again and again, that we all have Buddha nature, that we all are have enlightened heart and mind. It's only that we don't know that that's our true nature. And in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo clearly says that it's like a diamond, for example. Our true nature, our really good heart, enlightened, clarified intelligence, it's like as if it's like a diamond. And if you put a diamond in drain, the value of diamond still remains the same. Why? Because you can wash the muck off. So our true nature is that diamond which is forever kept safe. This is what Sri Aurobindo also describes in poetic form in Savitri, his epic poem, right? That no matter how far you may have gone into sinning, and how far you may have gone into or making all the bad decisions that you now regret, for example, no matter how far you have gone, you can always, always, always get back to that diamond. So although you are right that it's urgent, that we have to make use of this human birth to finally dig out that diamond and live as that diamond, totally understand that urgency. But having said that, uh, we can, it's never too late, because in eternity there is enough time. If not in this lifetime, maybe in next. If not in next, in the other, in the other, in the other. So in eternity there are umpteen number of chances that we are going to get. It's only that most of us just kind of, human birth is not, for example, wasted. And that's why masters say again and again that wake up to your true self. Don't waste this precious human birth. And when we talk about waking up to our true self, we have to come back and do this sadhana of letting go of the thoughts and feelings that we so rigidly hold on to, and knowing ourselves, stabilizing ourselves as this presence of awareness that is aware of the thought, aware of the feeling, aware of what's happening. That awareness is me, that quality of awareness. And the more and more we stabilize in that awareness, the more insights, intuitive wisdom, and the more love comes from the heart. So just sharing why, because that there is always a hope. We can always dig out and have that diamond. It's kept safe for us. Just like Angulimal, after
Yes,
killing
ma'am.
so many people and doing so much torture, finally, whenever his time was ripe, he fell onto Buddha's knees and he became a very enlightened arahat, in what they say in Buddhism. So even that kind of sinning, so many murders done, everything, you can always make a U-turn back. There is never too late. It's never too late. So it gives us hope that no matter how much sinning I may have done or crime I may have done, if I am willing now to have a better life, it is possible. And that's why we have hope for prisoners, held for criminal records and everything. That's why people do go prison reform, because if they have nothing, all of about them is bad, there is no hope. But if we operate from this principle that there is Buddha nature in everyone, which is kept safe, everyone has a good heart and we can enlighten it, evoke it, then we can go into prisons and even talk to and relate to those people who may have committed 10,000 crimes. But it doesn't matter. If now they are ready, then a beginning, new beginning can be made. So the victory is certain, as Mother says. Mother says that the divine victory is certain. All of us in this lifetime, later lifetime, doesn't matter when, we will get to our true nature. It is our destiny. So yeah, anything else? Anyone wants to share? Any reflections, doubts, any questions? So, if not, there is something, a short teaching about 3 minutes by Thich Nhat Hanh. So, someone is asking, if there is no self, then who is the doer? Who is making the step forward? So, he shares something very beautiful, and it's a very relevant question, that if there is no self, who is taking the step forward? So, he talks about that. Let's listen to this. Just a second. Yeah, got it. So the question is, as you can read here on the YouTube description, if there is no self, who is responsible for choosing the noble path? It's a very relevant question. It can come up while we are discussing this. So let's listen to this.
No self, that is why everything is possible.
Und
Because there is no self,
treffen, weil du schon eine
is impossible. Make choice.
Hoffnung auf Veränderung.
So just know that there is also a parallel German translation happening, and not to get lost there. Those of us who know German, you can understand, but those of us who don't know, it's a parallel translation going on. So let us just focus on the English one by Thich Nhat Hanh.
You cannot make choice because you are already a permanent, absolute entity. Any change is impossible.
Du kannst gar keine Entscheidungen treffen, weil du schon eine feststehende, unveränderliche Einheit bist und jegliche Änderung unmöglich ist.
Because there is no self, that is why everything is possible.
Und gerade weil es kein Selbst gibt, deswegen ist alles möglich.
It is like impermanence.
Es ist wie mit der Unbeständigkeit.
If things are not impermanent, you don't have any hope.
Wenn Dinge nicht unbeständig wären, dann bestünde keinerlei Hoffnung.
If your sickness is permanent, there's no hope for you to heal.
Wenn deine Krankheit unveränderlich wäre, dann bestünde keine Hoffnung für dich, sie heilen zu können.
If the grain of corn is permanent, how can we expect it to become a plant of corn and give us years of corn to eat?
Und wenn das Getreidekorn unveränderlich ist, wie besteht dann Hoffnung, dass es sich zu einer Getreideähre entwickeln könnte und uns das Getreide schenken könnte?
If a regime is a regime of dictatorship, it always dictatorship. It will always remain dictatorship, and there is no hope for democracy.
Wenn es ein diktatorisches Regime gibt und dieses diktatorische Regime immer so weiter bestehen würde, dann gäbe es ja keinerlei Hoffnung auf Demokratie.
And that is why we say that without impermanence, nothing can be possible. And your little girl can never become a lovely young lady.
Und deswegen sagen wir, dass ohne Unbeständigkeit nichts möglich wäre und das kleine Mädchen niemals zu einer schönen jungen Frau heranwachsen könnte.
And if everything has a self, and then they will remain the same as ever, and there is no real life.
Und wenn alles einen Selbst hätte, dann würde es ja immer so bleiben, wie es schon ist, und es könnte sich kein Leben ergeben.
And we can say that because there is no self, everything is possible.
So I think this is very beautiful. This has a lot of implications. So he's saying that because there is no self, no rigid, permanent me, that is why, precisely that is why, evolution is possible and infinite possibilities can be there. Because as he said, that if this impermanence is not there, the change is not there, then how can a seed become a tree? A seed becomes a tree because of the changes that it goes through. A little girl becomes a young lady because of the changes that it goes through. So I never heard it like this, that somebody is talking about there is no self, and or impermanence, to take it in such a beautiful way that usually whenever we talk about impermanence, we say that, oh, nothing is permanent, everything is fleeting. We mostly take it in that way, that how bad, but he shares that, wow, that there is impermanence, that if I have got a disease, and since things are impermanent, I can heal my disease. The disease is not going to stay there forever. So if there is a person who at the moment may be difficult, things will change, things can change, because the change is the only thing that is constant in life. So that's where we come back to, if there is no self nature, like if I am a not rigid entity, then I have infinite possibilities, that I can be anything, I can explore, I can become and not become anything. Why? Because there is no rigid self here. So what kind of a freedom, one can experience while exploring this like this, that since there is no rigid self in me, I can be anything. Infinite possibilities are there. Amazing, really amazing. And even in terms of what we were sharing, like criminals or so-called labeled as criminals, we often give up hope that, oh, this guy is a criminal, this guy is a terrorist, for example. We label it and we think that now it's done forever. But no, and Angulimal can become a Buddhist, Buddha. So a criminal can also become a nice human being, right now, who is a criminal. So if I am right now suffering from a depression, because things are impermanent, I can overcome my depression if I am willing. How beautiful, how enlarging it is. I never heard anything, although it's a very short clip and with the German translation in between, but what he shares is like, I feel it's like really, it gives one hope that, wow, that's why I must put effort, because anything is possible. And mother also says this, that little children are born with many dreams. You should never say that, no, this is not possible and this is not possible, because everything is possible. And right now where we are at, these computers, or the way we fly so easily at airports here and there, many years ago we would not have imagined that this is a possibility, landing on moon and going to other planets. And because things are impermanent, see what we have done and what we can do with ourselves. So it gives me hope. It really delights me when I listen to this. So yeah, if there are any reflections, any questions, please unmute.
Ma'am, can you tell the name of the book?
I'll send you the book. I have a PDF. I'll send you
Okay,
the
thank
book.
you.
Yeah, it's A Heart of Understanding by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's available as a PDF. I'll send it to you.
And suppose if I want to start with any of mother's book, with which book should I start with for a beginner?
Beginner, there are many books, but I would suggest that along with that, you can also attend the Friday study circle, because
Yeah,
that will help you understand.
I shall keep on attending. But if any book, can you tell me the name of 2 or 3
Yeah,
books?
there are many books, and many of them are available as a PDF also online. So I will send you the proper links on your, I have your number, and you can explore wherever you want to start with.
Or maybe hard copy, I can take it from Amazon or wherever.
Yeah. Hard copies will also be available, and for the hard copies also, there is a Sabda store in Pondicherry from where you can get the books. I'll send you all the links. I'll send
Yeah, please.
if you're
I shall look it
interested.
for.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'll
very
do
much.
that.
Thank you.
So Kriti, you were unmuting. You have something to share.
Yeah, nothing to share. I get what you're saying when you say it gives you hope, because I don't know if we realize that, but sometimes especially between the age of 20 to 25, when everyone's coming out of college and reality hits, you start getting these existential crises. Pretty much everyone कि अगर कुछ matter नहीं करता तो क्यों करते हैं, or if nothing is permanent, then why are we doing anything at all? These things happen because the interpretation is not clear yet, and it's not wrong to want to interpret it but also get it wrong sometimes. And I feel जब आप ये बोल रहे थे कि it gives you so much hope, you think it's so beautiful, I was just trying to understand what you're trying to say. And I realized that even though not as of today, I don't hold this thought very strongly, or I don't know if I hold it at all, kahin pe buried hoga. But I do remember as a few years younger, really just thinking that if nothing matters, then why does anything matter at all? If nothing is permanent, then what is permanent at all? Really take you down a circle spiral and not bring you back also sometimes. And in those times, there are tools to come back, but it can take you down a spiral. And I wish this interpretation would go to people who aren't able to understand that. मतलब उनको वो बड़ा sentence समझ नहीं आता, तो it can be really quite helpful for them to see it this way. Yeah, and then the larger takeaway could be that there is so many ways to interpret everything, and that interpretation can mean all the power. You can either empower yourself with a different interpretation that gives you hope, that gives you light, that gives you direction, or you could just get weighed down by that interpretation which doesn't suit you, but that's all you can see at that time. Something like that.
Beautiful, yeah. On this, I'm reminded of two things. So one thing is, when we talk about divine, that mother says that when people were building Auroville, for example, Russians, they were asking that, mother, we don't resonate with the word divine that you have used. So she said, okay, if you don't resonate with the word divine, then you use the word perfection. And we know, you are into the art of movement and body, and as an expert, so we would consider you an expert. But if you would talk about yourself, you would say, oh my god, abhi to main kitna ja sakti hu iske andar deep, as if ki abhi to sirf surface touch kari hai, right? So mother says that perfection, see, whenever we talk about divine, we say divine is infinite, we cannot reach the divine ever, right? It's infinite. Anant is another word for the divine. Perfection is also the same. So then no matter how far you go into any skill, any music, any art form, you see that, oh my god, it keeps on improving, and there is no end to it. Perfection, right? So for those of us who do not resonate with the word divine or the higher consciousness, they can also relate with the word perfection. So that is one that I wanted to share. The other thing is that if everything is impermanent, then of course we want to look for this security that there must be something which is never going away. Some people talk about that, for example, Thich Nhat Hanh, he shares that I never go away. He shares in this sense that if I drop dead, the body becomes the soil. I am mingled with the soil and the water. So where am I going? He really talks in that manner. Now, if taken from another perspective, you can talk about this, that how you are never going away, because behind the thoughts, feelings, and sense perceptions and the body, you are the presence of awareness, that which knows everything, knows the thought, knows the feeling, knows the depression, knows the highs, knows the lows. That knowing is not going away. So that is permanent. So there are different, as you were sharing, there are so many ways of interpreting one thing, which is beautiful since the divine is unlimited, right? And we can use it for our own good. As you clearly said that if something is making me, some interpretation is making me go down, down, down deep in the abyss, I can work on a different interpretation. We reflect on in a different way, look from a different window. And if that uplifts me, for that phase, I can buy into that. So whatever works basically for the growth of my consciousness, for the evolution of my journey.
Right.
And there was a person who I was talking to last week, since you said that about the different interpretation. So that person told me he's currently in a little bit of a depressive state. And he shared with me that मेरा ना मोह खत्म हो गया चीज़ों से, that I have lost attachment to things and people. And he's in a depressive state right now, I would say. That जीने का मन नहीं करता and all that. So the moment he said मेरा मोह खत्म हो गया है. Yeah, yes, Krish. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye. I said, isn't that beautiful? क्योंकि कौन से स्क्रिप्चर में लिखा है कि मोह रखो जीवन के साथ? कहीं नहीं लिखा. सब यही कहते हैं कि get detached and live a detached life. So now that you see that nothing can give you lasting happiness, everything is fleeting, all relationships are fleeting, jobs are fleeting, people are fleeting, and hence you know that किसी से भी मुझे attach होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, means nothing is permanent, and now I can become mohless. So now can a new life begin with a detached kind of an action? This is what Gita would talk about, a detached action, that you are doing the action, but you have no demand from that action in the sense that it should give you some gratification. So आप उसको उस सेंस में भी तो ले सकते हो. That's what I was sharing with him, that आप इसको disappointing सेंस में क्यों ले रहे हो कि मेरा मोह खत्म हो गया है, कितनी बुरी बात है. मैंने कहा मोह खत्म हो गया तो बहुत अच्छी बात है कि जीते जी अगर आपका मोह खत्म हो गया चीजों से, so begin a new life. Why not begin a new life and work on disinterested work or detached work, selflessly giving yourself to the existence. So yeah, just wanted to share that since you were talking about different interpretations. Yeah. So yeah, anything else? Anyone?
No, nothing right now.
Okay. So Sham, I'll send you the details that you're looking for,
Yes,
some
ma'am.
PDFs and some links where you can delve deeper into teachings Mother Ashwini. Okay. Okay. So thank you everyone and happy practice, and thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.